Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Kayvon Izami. Super excited, pumped up, delighted to talk to you guys today. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it. It's an early Saturday morning for me on the East Coast. I know you guys will be listening to this. I think it will come out Sunday morning. So hope you guys have a good weekend, a safe weekend. Have some fun, but be smart, especially with everything going on in the world. We have a really fun show for you guys today. You know, this is my third episode now with GSMC Football Podcast, and I've loved every bit of it. But it's getting to that point, you know, with the virus and everything going on where there's not as much content. You know, right now, if it was a normal year, we're a couple weeks before training camp, there would be so much going on. Instead, you know, most of the content is to be honest, kind of just depressing news, to be plain and simple. So it's kind of tough coming up with some ideas. So I've been looking for just fun ideas, you know, something that can really get the listeners engaged, really have them think of thoughts as well, so that we can go back and forth on it, you know, so I can hear y'all's thoughts. You guys can always reach out through Twitter and see what you guys have to say. And then, you know, we can go from there. So that's what I've been really coming up with thinking of how to go about each and every show. You know, we've been lucky. The first show we had the Cam Newton news. The second show we had the Patrick Mahomes news. And now it's kind of like dying down since then. But there's definitely still some storylines to talk about, and we have a lot of those. So right before I go into what the layout of this show is going to be and the fun that we're going to have today, especially that last segment, I first am going to do something that you guys are going to hear me do a lot on this show, and that's make fun of myself. I had a very interesting, to say the least, or to, you know, lack of a better word, happened to me before this show started. To give you guys an idea, where I record these podcasts, it's in my office, and my office it's just like a normal bedroom. I've got a desk, you know, I've got a couch, a TV that I like to have on in front of me just to see what's going on. You know, I keep it on the sports channels while I talk to see if something comes up. And I have a chair. I have an office chair, but I also have, I don't know exactly what it's called. It's not a medicine ball, but it's one of those workout balls that you can like sit on and they're bouncy. I have one of those because I like to sit on that time to time while I'm working because it's good for your back. You know, you try and sit in a good posture, whatever. I've heard that. I actually don't even know if it's true, but I use it because I feel like it helps me. So sometimes I like to sit on that while I do the show. And, you know, it's funny. A lot of people will be like, how do you not fall off that? Like, how do you balance? And I've always just been like, I don't know. I never have. Well, right before I start recording the show, I like to look on Twitter and just see if there's any news coming up, if any breaking news happens, so I can add into the show real quick on the fly. Well, I wasn't really paying attention. I was just scrolling through my phone, getting ready to start recording, doing some voice practices to get the voice sounding nice as always. And next thing I know, the ball just goes out from under me. And I just completely fall back and collapse. And while I was going down, I tried to reach for the microphone, and I pulled the microphone down with me, which was connected to my iPad. And then I pulled the iPad down with me, and I was for sure I just broke my iPad, and the microphone was done. And it was a huge noise, and I was like, oh my goodness. So that is how my morning has started. I hope you guys are off to a much better morning. I did hit my head, so maybe I'll talk some better sense. Maybe that's help me come to my senses and give you guys some more content than what I've been giving you the first two shows. But anyways, I thought I would just let you guys get a good idea of how clumsy I can be on my end and how I won't be sitting on that bouncy medicine ball, whatever it's called, to do a show anymore. I'm officially on a normal chair now, like a normal person would sit. So I wanted to fill you guys in on that story because I thought it was pretty funny to make fun of myself there for a second. Now, what we're going to talk about on the show today is 4 segments like we always do, 4 different topics. What we're going to first dive into, and the theme that I've been going with for the first 2 shows is positive train, right? You guys have heard me say that. We're staying positive. We're not talking about the virus ending football if it does or anything like that. That's going to have to change today for college football. We've had some breaking news that has shocked the college world, and we have to get into that. We have to get into that. And look, there's no answers. So obviously no one's going to be able to provide you answers. But what needs to be provided is questions. There needs to be questions from both sides. If football happens or if it doesn't happen, why it should happen, why it shouldn't happen. And I'm going to lay out all the questions. And I think that will be interesting for everyone to hear, to see this is all that's happening through it, okay? This is what these decision makers have to think about when they're making this decision if we're going to have a college football season or not. So we're going to dive into that to start the show. After that, we're going to look into, and I know, everyone is sick and tired of the Dak Prescott deal, right? Everyone's done with it. I'm done with it, man. It could not be more of a get this deal over with so this story will stop happening moment, right? So I thought, let's end it. Let's roll up the sleeves and let's have a serious talk. Let's look at both sides, the Cowboys and Dak, and let's make a decision. Should the Cowboys sign Dak Prescott to a long-term deal? I'm going to give you the answer. We're going to get down into the dirtiness of this conversation, and we're going to lay it all out there. It might hurt some feelings, but we're going to come up with an answer at the end. Stay tuned to find out what that answer is. Then we're going to look into the running back position in the NFL. All right? The running back position has been a captivating position, to say the least, okay? Important position, yes. Tough position, yes. And is it dying? Is the big payday for the running back position officially ending? We're going to give you some stats that will make you realize the answer to that question. And it's actually kind of a simple answer. And then while we're on the topic of running back, ESPN did a poll with 50 different executives, scouts, and coaches around the NFL on the top 10 running backs going into the 2020 NFL season. And yes, I have a problem with that list. So we're going to dive into where they went wrong with that list and what they got right with that list. Then to end the show, as we always do, we try and do some fun, entertaining segment that, just brings up whether it's, something a top 10 or something going forward into the season. And we try and do something different to spark conversations and have fun and create debate. So what we're going to do to end this show is we're going to do, did you guys know that since 2001, the 2001 NFL season, an NFL team has gone from last place, to first place every single year except for 2 years. Worst to first. It's the only league that this happens all the time with. We're going to look at all the teams that were in last place in their division last year, and we're going to see which team has a possibility, maybe there's one, maybe there's two, maybe there's three, of going worst to first this upcoming 2020 season. We're going to lay it all out for you for each of those teams that went last place, see who's close enough, see who's far enough, see who's far away. And that will all be coming up in just a bit. Now, to start though, you know how there are moments in life when something happens and at the time it doesn't really feel like a big deal at all. You know, and then a couple of days later, or a couple days later, sometimes even weeks or months go by, and then you realize, geez, can you believe that actually happened? Like, never in a million years would I think that is what escalated it to. You know what I'm saying? It seems like such a little thing, such a little moment, but it really actually ends up being something huge. Whether that's because it had a domino effect or whatever that is. Like, for instance, back in March, when this pandemic really started to get bad here in the U.S., cases were rising, people were dying. It was awful, and it still is awful to this day. But I remember back in March, which now feels like 4 years ago instead of 4 months ago, but back then, the Ivy League, they canceled their college basketball conference tournament. They did it before any other cancellation started to happen, and I remember people were bashing them. I mean, their own athletes were going on Twitter saying, this is ridiculous, this is my last chance to play basketball, you're ending my career. Other conferences were bashing them. I even said that was ridiculous. I said they're acting way too quick on this. They need to wait. And then a week later, I actually don't even know if it was a full week later, all other conferences and sports followed suit. And you look back and you're like, dang, they were right. They were actually ahead of this. Well, 4 months later, here we are in the exact same position as we were back then. The news dropped, as you all know. The Ivy League announced that they are canceling fall sports, which means fall football. They do not know if they are going to move it to the spring, but as of right now, they're canceling fall sports. So after this news broke, I started to turn back the clock. I started to turn back and think, what was the conversation like when this started to happen in March? And if you guys remember, once we realized everything was getting canceled, we immediately turned to talking football, right? The NFL in particular. We started talking, well, free agency's happening, then the NFL draft, and the conversation was always, man, football is so lucky because they're in the perfect time frame right now. They get the off season that is now all about them, and they have time to figure this out before their season starts. It was always, football is so lucky because they don't have to worry about this right now. They can sit back and watch and wait until their time comes. They have time to plan things out. That was the conversation right then. And that conversation kept on going. It's kind of like that plane. You know, this has all happened that keeps driving around the runway before taking off. You're like, oh my gosh, you're going to take off. Come on. Well, now that runway is starting to get shorter and shorter. And decisions are going to have to start to come. Are you going to park the plane? Or are you going to attempt to take off? This is where we are with college football right now. The Ivy League has once again made the first move. They decided to park the plane. Are we going to see other conferences follow and do the same thing once again? Or is it going to be different this time? And look, I get it, all right? This is football. This is completely different. You can say, well, Kayvon, it's the Ivy League. That's not a football conference. We don't think of the Ivy League as a sports conference. We think of them as an academic, prestigious school, you know, some of the best schools in all of the country. look, we get all that stuff. We really do. We're not looking at the Ivy League for the next NFL stars, even though they have produced some, to be fair, from time to time. But we aren't doing that. We're not scouting these games to look at the next NFL star and all that. But they do still have athletes, and those athletes have lost their season as of now. Can a spring season happen? Yeah, maybe. But there are a lot of things they will have to figure out for that to happen. So the Ivy League, for once again, the first to make a move. And really not just with the Ivy League, but when you look at all the other schools around, the conferences in the country, everything, the school presidents, the athletic directors, the administration, and so on. Most of them have really been in unison with the same conversation. It's that, look, we would love to play sports this fall. We would love to make this happen. But we need to have everyone on campus to make this happen. We need to get students back here. This is a college, even though a lot of times, it doesn't seem like that. It doesn't seem that way. But that's what it is. And if you remember, there were different parts of the country that were saying different things. We thought down in the South, SEC land, they were talking about fans in the stadium. The governor of Texas was saying we could host events with 50% capacity. All of that was happening just a couple weeks ago, if not months. Or just a couple months ago, if not weeks. And now those states are not doing so well. The cases continue to rise in those states, and rise drastically, I might add. So the Ivy League comes out and says, we're not going to have fall sports. Boom. They made their decision. But ultimately, it's not like basketball. That doesn't have an effect on the Power 5 schools. At the end of the day, guys, the Power 5 schools are going to do what they want to do. It's just that simple. And that is what we just saw with the Big Ten and the move that they recently made. The Big Ten announced that the entire conference will be going to an all-conference schedule this upcoming season. So that is the next big move that is shaking college football right now. You first have the Ivy League say no fall sports, and now the Big Ten comes out. And to be honest, I didn't think this would happen so quick. But boom, right after the Ivy League, the Big Ten comes out and says, hey, we're still trying to do this thing, but we're going to an all-conference schedule. Okay? All those out-of-conference games, peace. And there's a lot of good games that are getting erased by that. So let me read you the statement. The Big Ten said in a statement to ESPN, and I quote, "We are facing uncertain and unprecedented times, and the health, safety, and wellness of our student athletes, coaches, game officials, and others associated with our sports programs and campuses remain our number one priority. By limiting competition to other Big Ten institutions, the conference will have the greatest flexibility to adjust its own operations throughout the season and make quick decisions in real time based on the most current, evolving medical advice and the fluid nature of this pandemic." This is a positive sign in my eyes. As crazy as that sounds, I see this as a step in the right direction. I really do. If you're a college football fan and you want sports, this is a positive direction and a positive sign in my eyes. Because there's something starting to happen. Moves are being made. I mean, football has had the longest time to get ready for this virus. And the time is running out, and it's running out fast. So it's good to see that the Big Ten is starting to take the lead on some of these decisions. And if football is going to happen, this makes by far the most sense. Because it gives the conference flexibility, like they said in that statement. They can make changes mid-season if they need to. Also, it cuts down traveling, which is the ginormous part of the problem when it comes to sports like football. And that's a problem with MLB right now, too. Traveling is a huge issue. NBA and MLS, they're in a bubble. They don't have to travel. And we don't even know if those are going to work. But this definitely takes some fun, intriguing matches away from us. We know that, all right? That's gonna be a downside from this. But we're going to have to make those sacrifices if we want football at all. And I'm fine with that, and you guys should be fine with that too. We can't get greedy in these circumstances. We have to take what we can get if that's any of it or anything. Now, with all that being said, I will be fully honest when it comes, because I feel like that is my job. But when it comes to college, this is the one sport that I'm the most skeptical about when it comes to having a season. There are so many issues with all of these sports restarting, obviously, but college has the most. And we're talking about students being involved. We forget that a lot because of how much money college sports make, but these are still students. There's a lot more liability for these universities. And then the biggest issue is to try and explain that it's not safe for students to come back on campus and go to classes, and they have to do it online. But then you turn around and out of the other side of your mouth, you say, but our athletes will be on campus to get ready for football games. That's why they're here. That's a very tough sell. And I understand that. And I also understand, and I know I'm going back and forth here, but with unprecedented times like this and doing a show solo, you kind of have to look at both sides. So I also understand that money talks and money walks, and money says, I want to play football. I mean, that's just how it is. Football prints money. I get that. I get all of that stuff, all right? And that is the reason, and the only reason, that college football will happen if it does, is because of that money. I also understand the trickle-down effect that is going to happen on smaller conferences and programs. I mean, that can't go unnoticed here. If the Power 5 schools only play conference schedules, which it looks like that's what they're going to if we have football, it takes away the big money that these schools give to the smaller universities as essentially a beatdown game. You know, it's like, you know, every year Alabama pays Western Carolina a couple million to come down to Tuscaloosa and get destroyed. It's like, hey, Western Carolina, here's $2 million. Come down here. We'll beat you 60-0. Have some fun doing it. And you can take your $2 million and leave. And Western Carolina says we would be glad to do that because they need that money to fund their program, to fund their athletic department. So with games not being able to be played against those smaller programs, that puts a huge risk of these other programs all around the country being shut down. So there's no doubt a serious trickle-down effect in all of this. These decisions have to be made, though. And whoever is making the decision needs to think real hard and be confident and stick to the decision they make. I know that sounds so crazy with the fluidity and the unknown of this virus. I get it. And you would really like to think that these decisions are made and it's not solely based on money. You would hope that they would look at everyone involved and then make the decision. We have to remember this is not the NFL. This is not a pro sports league, even though at times it seems like it is because of how much money is involved. These schools print money. You know, we all understand that. And they print that money because of football and basketball. See, the NFL is going to be able to give it a try. It's going to be able to go because they own a day of the week. They own Sundays. They're going to put that behind them, and they're going to say, we're going to do it, and we don't really care the negative effects that come out of it. But let me ask you a question. Everyone listening out there, and I really want you to think about this. If you had a child who's a big-time football player at one of these schools, these big-time schools, and you had to send him to go play football for one of these schools, how would you feel about that right now? Would you be comfortable doing this? And I know it's a tough question to ask, But that's what these families are thinking. And then what about from the coach's side of things? You go into these parents' living room every year and tell them that their kid is safe with you, that their kid's best interest is to come play for you. You ask their parents to trust you with their baby boy. And then say you decide to go on and play football this fall with all that being in mind. Are you really going to be putting their best interest in front of you? And then God forbid something does happen. How can you go back to those parents? And how can you go back into those parents' living room and say the same thing for them to trust you? Look, I know I'm sounding negative here. I know I am. But I'm just asking the questions that need to be asked. These are the questions that has to be thought about during these times. Look, I will be more depressed and just as depressed as everyone out there that loves football. I mean, this is work for me, you know? I need football to talk about what I want to talk about. But these questions have to be asked during a time like this. So let's look at it. Let's try and talk through it a little bit here. Let's say they move college football to the spring. Well, how does that work with the NFL? I mean, if you're a surefire first round, lock it in the bag, seal it up, and send it first round draft pick, you're not playing college football in the spring. Come on. Why would you play? Why would you risk that? So then you have to think, well, will that turn into a diminished product on the field? Will that lead to a less entertaining college season? Well, you would think so, right? I mean, you think most of these bowl games already are so boring. Wait till they're being played in March or April. Who's going to be playing in those games? We are in completely uncharted and unprecedented territory right now. You would think we would have some answers on ways to go about this stuff after 4 months of being in it, but we don't. I mean, I still don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know about you, but I don't. And then you see this type of news, and it's just flat out depressing. It really is. I mean, you think of football, the big bad sport of football. Nothing can touch that sport. It's football, baby. We're moving forward no matter what. We hit each other out there. But it's not looking that way. Ohio State's athletic director Gene Smith came out the other day and said straight up, I don't know if we're going to be playing football this fall. I have no clue. He said a couple weeks ago, I was very optimistic about having a season. Now, today, I don't think I can say I'm optimistic. The optimism has gone away because of the recent rise in cases once again. There's just so many repercussions that these schools have to think about. And this is not easy. These are extremely hard decisions to think about. But they have to be made. They have to be made. Look at the Ivy League. The Ivy League made up their mind. They said, we're not doing it. And again, it's the Ivy League. They don't need the sport money. They don't need the football money. I mean, I think Harvard came out the other day and is charging $50,000 for the semester of online classes. Like, the Ivy League is going to be just fine. We get that. It's a different situation, but they're making a decision. They said sports is not worth the risk for us. It's just not. They understand that they just ended hundreds of kids' football career, that seniors are never going to be able to play again. They understand that. They understand that, yes, even though they do rely on academics and all that, and it's a prestigious school, they still will lose money. But they made a decision, and they're sticking to their decision. It's time for these leagues to stand up and make that decision. Are you willing to take the risk? Are you willing to take the risk of kids getting sick? All of these are major risks. But then you have to look at it the other side too, okay? You have to say, well, kids can get sick. No doubt about it. But you can also say, with football, maybe you can control the kids. Maybe, you'll be able to, have them under surveillance. You'll be able to have the coaches watching with them. They won't be going out to bars and clubs or hanging out with people outside of their football team. So maybe it's safer for them. I mean, that's a legitimate point to look at. You have to put all these factors together and you have to stick with your decision because you're going to get criticism no matter what. Look at the UFC and Dana White. And I know these are completely different examples. Football, you have 50, 80, 90 kids on a roster. UFC's this. But UFC, they were one of the first sports to start back, and Dana White got destroyed. And he said, screw y'all. All right? I'm going with this. We're going to have UFC. We're going to put on entertainment for the fans because that's what we are paid to do. And it's been going great ever since. There's a fantastic fight tonight that I can't wait to watch. NASCAR's done the same thing. The NBA's doing it. They're going on. The NHL's doing it. The NFL's going to do it. And the Ivy League just did it. They're making different decisions here. But they're making the decision. And that has to happen. You come out and you say, we're going to play football against each other in our conference, and it's that simple. We're going to give it a try, and we're going. And stick to it. It's a pandemic. Whatever you do, there's going to be risk. If you go outside your home, you're taking a risk. If you go to the grocery store, you're taking a risk. If you hang out with your friend or a girlfriend or a boyfriend that doesn't live with you, you're taking a risk. Playing sports is taking a risk. This is a pandemic. You've got to take a risk if you want to do it. And it's just that simple. And let's hope that things come out the right way. I want college football just like the next person. And I hope that they are willing to try it. I do. But I also hope that they take in mind the well-being and the safety of student athletes, of coaches, of administrators, of family members, because this is nothing to joke around about. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. We thank everyone for listening today, tuning in. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, that's right, we're pulling the sleeves up, we're getting dirty, and we're talking about the Dak Prescott deal, and we're ending it. We're coming up with an answer, and we're ending the conversation today. Stay tuned to see if you like that answer.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I thank everyone out there for listening. I am your host, as always, Kayvon Izami. Hope everyone's having a beautiful day out there. We started off the show, we're heading into segment 2 now, but we started off the show, I told you guys about the morning that I've had and the clumsy and mishap that happened over here. I'm okay, though. I'm all right, if anyone cared or was worrying. But I hope you guys are off to a good morning. We just talked about college football and the hoops and loops that they're going to have to jump through to get a season going, and we just laid out the questions. I just wanted to clarify. I hope I'm trying not to sound negative on the topic. I want football just as much as anybody else, and I want everyone to understand that. And I know that segment can come off in a negative way, but those questions have to be asked. This isn't something to joke around about. We all want college football. We need college football. And for the players, some of these players, this is their senior year. Those Ivy League kids, they might not get to play again. And then that could happen all over the country. And some of the programs that will just lose football, and that means no more scholarships for these kids. It's a mess. It's a mess. So I want football to happen just as bad as the next person. There's no doubt about that. But we had to lay out those questions, and I hope college football is doing the same thing. I hope every conference is working together. Even if all these conferences go only conference games and nothing else, they still need to be working together, because the more heads you put in a pot, the more ideas and the more questions will come up. And during a time like this, you need to make sure every single question gets checked off that box before you start to say we're going to have a real football season. And the NFL better be doing the same thing. Look, I know the NFL is going full speed ahead. Like I've said numerous times, they own a day of the week, and there's no stopping that, and they know that, and they don't care about that. But they also need to be smart too, and they need to be asking these questions, and they need to be doing everything they can to ensure that they're going to keep their players safe to the most part, to at least the extent that they can go of doing that and trying to do that. So check out that first segment if you guys are just now tuning in, and let me know your thoughts on that and what we went through. But now we're going to have some fun. We definitely started off the show in a little bit more of a hard-pressed topic. But it's something that needed to happen. That topic, now that big moves are making, that topic had to happen. But now it's time to really have some fun with this, because we're about to dive into a conversation here that has been happening for way too long. And everybody under the sun, even Cowboys fans, are sick of this conversation. It's the Dak Prescott conversation. It's the should he be signed? If so, for how much? Blah, 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 blah. I get it. So I'm going to end that conversation for once and for all. I'm going to give you guys the exact answer of what needs to happen, and then we're not going to talk about it again until a move does actually happen. And maybe, just maybe, Jerry Jones will come across this podcast, and he'll say, man, that Kayvon kid, woo! He is smart, smart, smart. I'm going to do what he says. You never know. So, what we're going to do here, we're going to roll up the sleeves and we're going to get down to the dirty. We're going to talk every single part of this so that we can lay out both sides and come up with a fair answer. This topic needs a resolution, and it's time for it. So, it's the infamous Dak conversation, right? Should Jerry Jones sign him to a long-term deal? Does he deserve the amount of money he's asking for? We've all been through it. We know the questions. And it's funny. Actually, the reason why I thought about doing this was I was texting my friends with some of my friends the other day. I have this group message where I'm sure a lot of you guys do, ladies and guys, from high school. It's a couple friends from high school, and we talk in it every day. Once you get older, you can't see your friends as much, so we talk in it every day, and it's pretty much strictly a sports conversation. I mean, don't get me wrong, we talk about the ladies, here and there and stuff like that, but it's strictly a sports conversation, usually. So the other day when the Mahomes deal dropped, we were talking about that. We were talking about the record deal that Mahomes got, and one of my buddies was actually joking around, and he goes, that means Dak's now going to ask for $1 billion. And he was obviously kidding, but when my buddy said that, but there actually is some truth to it if you think about it. Because what my buddy's pretty much saying is Dak feels like he is worth the most amount of money possible. And honestly, congrats to Dak. Props to him for thinking that way. If he feels like he has the chance to grab as much money as possible, then go for it. I've said it 100 times. I am always for the players getting their money or getting what the market tells them that they should get. I'm always for that. But there's also a difference in believing what you're worth and then realizing what you're actually worth. You know what I'm saying? One is belief and one is reality. Well, the clock is now ticking and time is running out for a deal to be made. So I'm going to make the deal for the Cowboys. I'm going to make the deal for Dak Prescott. So I'm willing to dive headfirst into this and have the real and final Dak Prescott conversation to figure this out. Sunglasses off, chips in the middle. Let's get into it. So this is how we're going to do this. We're going to do it in a fun way. We're going to look at it from Dak Prescott's side and lay out why he deserves the contract that he wants. And then we're going to look at it from Jerry Jones and the Cowboys organization side. And we're going to say why Jerry wants it and the Cowboys want it this way. And we're going to make it a little fun with this conversation. And I'm going to actually take over the role of Dak Prescott when I'm making his points. And then I'm going to take over the role of Jerry. Now, I'm not going to be doing any accents here because I can't. I mean, if it was an Aussie accent or a British accent, all day I could do that. But I don't have a good Southern accent, so I can't take over Jerry Jones' accent on this. But I'm gonna be taking over their character. I'm gonna be talking when I talk about their side. I'll be talking as Jerry Jones. When I talk about Dak's side, I'll be talking as Dak Prescott. All right. So let's get started. Let's have some fun with it. Let's start with Dak. Dak, in the room, in the big old conference room at AT&T Stadium, sitting across from Jerry Jones, just them two in the building. Let's hash it out, baby. Let's hash it out. Mr. Jerry Jones, let me ask you something. Why don't you believe in me? Huh? Haven't I done enough to prove to you that I'm your guy? Haven't I shown you that I'm worth the big money, Mr. Jerry Jones? First, Jerry, I just want you to know this, and I'm going to lay this out right away. And I think you already know this because I haven't taken a deal. But I'm totally fine playing on this franchise tag. You're not going to scare me away with the idea of getting tagged 2 years in a row. Because, Mr. Jerry Jones, if you tag me 2 years in a row, that means I'm going to make $31 million this year and then $37 million the next year. What is that? $68 million in 2 years guaranteed? Sign me up. Sign me up. And then I become a free agent on the open market after that? 32 teams out there? Who knows the amount of money that I'll gain? Come on, Jared. You know your buddies. You know your owners out there. You know these people are starving for a quarterback. They'll throw money at me. So let me just get that out of the way first, okay? Now, I know you don't have anyone. This is the biggest thing right here. I know, Jerry, that you don't have anyone that can replace me. You have no other option. Maybe you can draft someone out of college next year. You could do that, but we're going to be too good to get any of the top, high draft picks like Trevor and Justin Fields coming out of college. So you're not going to be able to land a top quarterback. So you'll have to find another steal, like me. And let's be honest, Jerry, we both know you've got pretty lucky finding me. The odds of that happening again are low. Look at the teams, Jerry, that have needed a quarterback for so long. Look at those fan bases. Look at the fan bases out there that just have to deal with going from quarterback to quarterback, wishing and waiting that one day a winning QB will drop on their organization's front step. The misery, the pain that those franchises have gone through. I mean, I don't want to call anyone out, Jerry, but just pick up the phone and give your buddy Jimmy Haslam over at the Cleveland Browns in Ohio a call. I think he can walk you through that pretty well. Now, they've got a guy now in Baker who looks like he might be all right. But that's not 100%. And they've been looking for a long time. Or go ask Woody Johnson. Your homie over with the New York Jets, the owner over there. Now, I like the guy they have now too in Sam Darnold, but they've been looking for a steady QB for years. Those franchises, those fan bases, they're hurting. And Jerry, you're the Dallas Cowboys. You can't afford to not have a quarterback. See, Jerry, you got lucky. You had Tony Romo for a long time, and he was a good QB. He won you some games. There's no doubt about it. And then I came in right after him. You didn't have to go through the years of getting QB after QB wrong. There is no telling what happens, Jerry, if I end up walking in free agency a couple years ago. There's no telling if there's a backup plan coming right through that door. Now, let me tell you who I am, Jerry, and what I brought to the table. I'm 16 games over 500 in my career so far. 16 games over 500 in my career so far. I'm very efficient. I complete 61% of my passes. I protect the football very well. I've thrown 61 more touchdowns than I have interceptions. A total of 97 touchdowns and 36 interceptions to be exact, Jerry. You already know that I'm durable. I have not missed one single game since you drafted me, preseason or regular season. I mean, obviously you've sat me for some preseason games, but when it's time to go play, I've always played. And Jerry, I mean, we're close. I just want to lay it out here. We know you're getting older. All right? We all know you're getting older. You don't need to be stressing out every week if your QB is going to be healthy enough to play. You don't want to have to worry about your QB not getting practice reps because he's still trying to recover from that injury and he needs to get healthy enough to play. I'm durable, Jerry. You don't even have to think about that with me. I'm a leader. My teammates love me. And I don't bring bad vibes to the locker room. I'm your quarterback, Jerry. See, I laid it all out here. I'm a starting quarterback in this league. The problem, though, Jerry, is you screwed me. See, you screwed up big time. You paid my buddy Zeke, and you paid my dude Amari before you paid me. And I'm so happy my boys got their contract. But you waited, and the QB market went up and up. So I'm not going to budge here, Jerry. Like I said earlier, I have no problem at all playing on the franchise tag if you're not willing to pay me what I want. I mean, Jerry, you are always standing up there in front of the media talking about how money is never a problem and you'll open your checkbook, this, that, and that to win a Super Bowl and you'll sign away an infinite amount of money if that can get you a Super Bowl win. Well, I'm right here. I'm ready to get you that Super Bowl win. It's your turn. It's your turn to make the decision because we only have a couple of days left. All right, now it's time to go from Jerry's angle. All right, Mr. Prescott, I appreciate all your points that you just laid out so eloquently right there. You have a great argument. There is no doubt about that. There's just a couple of things that I need to correct you on. Now, you want anywhere from $35 million to $40, and I've even heard $45 million at one point, right? That's what you're talking about, somewhere in that price range. So Dak, let me see here. Patrick Mahomes will make $45 million. He won a Super Bowl. He's won an MVP. He's done more in 2 years than I've seen any player done in my life. But okay. Let's drop it down a little bit. Let's look at $35 million a year. Who in the league? Who else in the league is making $35 million a year? Let me look around here, huh? Oh, that's right. Russell Wilson. Man, that boy, he can play. Well, what has Russell Wilson done in his career? Well, he took the Seahawks back-to-back Super Bowls, and he's been one of the best QBs in the league since he's entered. There's no doubt about that. Now, Dak, you bring up the record. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that record that you're talking about here, okay? You said that you're 16 games over 500, and you know what? You're right about that. That was way to do your research, way to know that. You brought that to the table, and you put it down there. So I respect that. But, Dak, we both know that numbers can be skewed at times a little bit, right? So it's a good thing that I broke it down a little bit more for you here. See, Dak, when you play teams with 9 wins or fewer, you're on fire, man. Your record is 35-11 with 75 touchdowns and 17 interceptions and a total quarterback rating of 72.9. Not too shabby, am I right? Now, Dak, let's look at your record against teams with 10 or more wins. You're 5 wins and 13 losses with 22 touchdowns and 19 interceptions. And your quarterback rating drops down to 55.3. Winning games is great and all, Dak. Being 16 games over 500 is awesome. But you haven't performed against the best teams. You haven't performed to the way that you perform against the non-playoff teams. But let's look a little further here, okay? See, Dak, I signed Andy Dalton to a $7 million contract this offseason. Why would I do that? And you know, with the virus and the season in question, the cap is not going to go up. It's not. There's a good chance that it may even go down. And maybe it will get to a point where it can stay stagnant. But it's definitely not rising $10 million a year like it has been each and every year. So having a QB on my roster for $7 million, that's music to my ears, Dak. Now, I see you over there. I see you laughing right away when I brought up Andy Dalton's name. I saw the smirk on your face. You're better than Andy Dalton, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. Come on, we all know that. Except there are a couple doubts here. I mean, if you were to sit out this year, you know, because you wanted your big payday, and Andy came in with all those weapons that we've surrounded you with, what would you say? He would probably go like 7-9 or 8-8 or maybe even 9-7 possibly. Don't you? Probably something like that, right? Well, that's what we have been doing with you. I mean, yeah, you won 13 games your rookie year, and that was awesome. But since then, we have gone 9-7, 10-6, and 8-8. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's pretty standard in my eyes. And we have had the best O-line in the league in all those years. You know, when Dalton had a lot of talent around him in Cincinnati, he went 10-6, 11-5, 11-5, and 10-6 4 straight years in a row. And the talent that he had around him in Cincinnati is nowhere near the talent that he would have around him here in Dallas. Now, in no way am I saying that I'd rather have Dalton as my QB. But I'm only paying him $7 million a year, Dak. He would have Zeke Elliott in the backfield. He'd have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup all out wide to throw the ball to. And then with that money that we would have left, since our QB is only making $7 million, I could go out and trade for Jamal Adams. I could sign him to that big contract that he wants, or I could just sign a couple more defensive pieces and give him a much better defense. See, Dak, I would love to have you as my QB long term. I really would. But I don't know if you can win me the big one, Dak. I need to win the big one, man. And I don't know if you can get me there. But I'll be honest with you. You do deserve your money. You deserve a big contract, especially since you have been playing on the fourth round on that fourth round salary the last couple years. The problem is, though, I think, Dak, that you're looking for too much. You're looking for Pat Mahomes' deal. And you feel like you deserve that type of deal. I know you want $35 to $40 million a year, and you want a short-term deal so you can hit the market again and cash in your prime once again. I understand all that, Dak. The problem is you're not Pat Mahomes. I love you. You're a good QB, but no one in this league is Pat Mahomes. Not even the man in Seattle that's making $35 million a year. So we just can't do what the Chiefs just did to Pat. We can't. That's just not an option to us. It's just not. And that's why the solution here is to let it play out on the franchise tag. Dak, we've got about 5 days left to come up with a deal. I don't see it happening. You don't see it happening. Let's play it out. You just said it to us. You're durable. You've played every single game, so you don't have to worry about getting hurt. I'd be more than happy to give you $31 million this year to play on a one-year deal. Go out and win me the Super Bowl like you said that you're my guy to do that. And if you do that, then this checkbook really will open up to the amount of money you want. Produce, and you get that contract. But for now, it's a one-year deal, and we go from there. That is the solution, ladies and gentlemen. That is what the Cowboys and Dak Prescott should do. And they both should like that deal. It gives Dak a chance to cash in for 31, 36, and then hit the free agent market. And it lets the Cowboys go year and year to see if he really is their guy. It's the smartest way to go about it, other than giving someone a long-term deal that they're clearly not sold on. If they are sold on Dak Prescott, this deal has already happened. It's Jerry Jones. He pays. He's not stingy. He pays. He would have paid Dak already if he had wanted to sign Dak to a long-term deal. So that's the simple answer. Play it out and see what happens. It works for both sides. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. I hope everyone's enjoying the show today. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look at the running back market. We're going to look at everything going on in the running back market and what has gone on lately with some running backs getting a big deal and other teams not willing to pay other running backs the big deal that they want. Is this changing? Is the running back position changing? We're going to dive into that, and we're going to look at the top 10 running backs going into the 2020 season. Stick around. You're going to want to see my list. We'll be right back on the GSMC Football Podcast right after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMC gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. Hope everyone's having a great day, and we appreciate you tuning into the show as always. We're 2 segments in with 2 to go, and we're still thriving. We still got the energy. I have got another cup of coffee in front of me. Doing these shows in the morning usually because that's when I'm fresh. That's when my brain works the best. We're caffeinated. We're opinionated. I have to say that is not my line. I actually took that line from, there's this long-time sports radio host. His name's Jerry V. And he went back and forth from hosting in New Orleans and Charlotte. I used to live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I would always listen to him. He would always be, my daily, when I drove, wherever I was going, work, school, whatever, his show would come on. It was like the 3 to 6 show. And super funny guy, like really smart guy too. He used to be a basketball coach as well. And he's really Italian. So he'd have this kind of Italian accent at time. And he would always say, I'm caffeinated and I'm opinionated. And it would always stick in my head. So when I was at UNC Charlotte, where I went to college, I had my own sports radio talk show there. And what I would do is I would always try and bring on, local or national media members to do interviews with. And I would always bring on Jerry V, and I would make him say that statement because it was just awesome to hear. I loved it. I don't know why it stuck with me, but I'm caffeinated and I'm opinionated, and I stole that from Jerry V. So thank you, Jerry V. Anyways, like I said, this is the GSMC Football Podcast. We thank everyone for listening. We are what we just dove into last segment, talking about Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, and we ended the deal. We made a deal and we stopped the conversation, and we're not bringing the conversation back up until the deal happens. Now, I said it. The best thing that they should do is play on the franchise tag, both of them. It's best for the organization and it's best for Dak. I know a lot of people think that's crazy, and I think people would say it's more crazy for the organization to allow Dak to play on the franchise tag. But I don't see it that way. I don't. I think it's the smartest thing for them to do, and we'll see what happens. And I'm sure there's a very good chance I'm wrong. Maybe Jerry will open that checkbook and pay Dak what he wants, but it would not be good for their future to do that. It wouldn't. And I almost feel positive saying that a lot of Cowboy fans out there will agree with me on that. They will. But we'll find out because we have about 5 days left before they can for them to come up with a deal. If not, Dak's playing on that franchise tag. Now, let's get into the next topic, something that's really fun. ESPN came out with a top 50. What they did was they went and got 50 executive coaches, scouts around the NFL, and they came up with the top 10s of each position going into 2020. So throughout the week, throughout the next couple shows, we'll dive into different categories. And I wanted to start with the running back position because there's such a big conversation going on about should running backs be paid. Christian McCaffrey got paid this offseason. Zeke Elliott got a massive contract a couple off seasons ago. Dalvin Cook's looking for a contract. Derrick Henry's looking for a contract. Alvin Kamara's going to be looking for a contract soon. Nick Chubb in a couple years. So there's so many running backs out there right now that are going to be looking for these big deals. And it's come up with the question is, are these teams willing to pay that? Because we've seen in the past, a lot of teams are not. I mean, look at what happened with the Rams. The Rams gave Todd Gurley the biggest running back deal in the history of the NFL, and 2 years later, they cut him. And then the Falcons signed him for $5 million, which as a Falcons fan, I am very happy about. But that's crazy, right? So that should just be point A, where this isn't happening anymore. It's becoming a waste, and I don't mean a waste as in the players are starting to suck and that they're wasting their money on them. That's not what I mean. But there's so many other running backs out there that can give you maybe not the same production, but close to it for insanely less amount of money. So let's look into it. All right, let's look into that topic of, is the top paid running back position dying? Is that going to keep on happening, or are we really starting to get to a point where running backs just aren't going to get paid as much anymore unless you're that outlier Christian McCaffrey type back? So I want to give you some stats, some really interesting stats that I came across that are like, man, is that really true? All right, so the first one is, last year, 10 of the top 11 rushers in the league were on their rookie deal. That is wild. Let me repeat that. 10 of the top 11 rushers in the NFL were on their rookie deal last year, okay? Derrick Henry was the top rusher in the entire league, 1,540 yards. Nick Chubb, 1,494. Christian McCaffrey, 1,387. Zeke Elliott, the one that was not on the rookie deal, he's the only one, 1,357. Chris Carson, 1,230. Lamar Jackson, 1,206. Quarterback on his rookie deal. Leonard Fournette, 1,152. Josh Jacobs, 1,150. Joe Mixon, 1,137. Dalvin Cook, 1,135. And then Marlon Mack was just outside the top 10 at 1,109, who also, 1,091 yards for Marlon Mack, who's also on his rookie deal as well. So that's pretty wild if you think about it. All right, then the last 4 rushing champions were 25 or younger. So stat 1 and 2 kind of go hand in hand, right? You say top 10 out of the 11 rushers were on their rookie deal, and then the last 4 rushing champions were 25 or younger. It's a trend. The more productivity comes at a younger age in the running back position. The leading rusher on last year's Super Bowl team, so Chiefs and 49ers, were Damian Williams, who ranked 25th on the team in terms of their salary, and Raheem Mostert, who ranked 26th on the Niners in terms of their salary. So Damian Williams is the 25th highest paid player on the Chiefs. Raheem is the 26th highest paid player on the Chiefs. In the last 8 years, 10 running backs were drafted in the first round. So you say, well, what? I mean, I guess in the last 8 years, 10 running backs were drafted in the first round. Well, let me put that in perspective to you. 31 wide receivers were drafted in the first round during that time. So in the last 8 years, you had 10 running backs go in the first round, and in the last 8 years, you had 31 wide receivers go in the first round. Double. That's amazing. That's so many more, right? So last year, teams devoted less than total salary cap dollars to the running back position than they did 10 years ago. Even though the salary cap position or the salary cap has risen 50% since then. Let me say that a little bit clearer. Last year, teams devoted less total salary cap dollars to the running back position than they did 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, the salary cap was 50% less than what it is now. Salary cap has raised 50% since then, and there was still more money going to the running back position back then. The best illustration of this, I mean, honestly, the best example of this is shown in Tennessee. Look at the Titans. Look what Derrick Henry did for that team last year. I think everybody under the sun would agree that the Titans do not go anywhere near the AFC Championship game without Derrick Henry. Was Ryan Tannehill great throughout the season? Yes. Was that defense awesome? Was Mike Vrabel a fantastic coach? A.J. Brown, really good-looking rookie wide receiver. They had some studs on their team, no doubt about it. But that team does not win one single playoff game. They don't go in Foxborough and beat the Patriots without the way that Derrick Henry was running. They don't then go in Baltimore and beat the best team in the NFL during the regular season in the Ravens without the way Derrick Henry was running. They don't get up 10 against the Chiefs in the AFC title game without the way Derrick Henry was running. He did all of that, and guess what? Here comes the offseason. They slapped the franchise tag on him. They said, hey, thank you, Derrick, but we just can't pay a running back long term. I'm sorry, so here's the franchise tag. And then guess what they do? They go and pay the QB big time. They go and pay the QB the $30 million a year for a 4-year deal. I mean, if that doesn't say something, then I don't know what does. Let's look at this. The two teams that have paid, there's two teams out there that have actually paid their running backs, and that's Dallas with Zeke and Carolina with Christian McCaffrey, right? So now you look at it, I mean, what will happen with Saquon Barkley coming up? Dalvin Cook has already said he wants a deal. He could sit out if he doesn't get one. The Vikings aren't budging. They don't want to give him that deal. The truth of the matter is this. The position is just really easy to replace. As bad as that sounds, that's just the truth. Now, there are exceptions. There are no doubt about that. And those exceptions are Christian McCaffrey, and some would say Zeke. I don't think Zeke deserved the money that he got, and I think that's going to come back and bite the Cowboys in future years. But he got it, so great for him, you know? Now, McCaffrey has done everything under the sun for that team, and that's why he got that contract. So those are the exceptions, and there are going to be others that get it. But look at Henry. He did everything he could, and he still couldn't get a long-term deal. So the majority of the time, what we're seeing is these teams would just rather draft a rookie running back that comes in on a cheap deal and can put up almost the same production, if not the same production, as the running back that wants the big contract. I mean, the position is such a tough position to play. The hits tally up. They put a toll on your body. You have to start playing that at such a young age where you go head first into that offensive line hole. And by the time your rookie deal is up, the team has gotten what they wanted out of you, and they move on. It sounds terrible, and it is, but that's just how this has been going the last couple of years. That's why 10 out of the top 11 rushers were on their rookie deal. That's why the last 4 rushing champions were 25 or younger. Because these running backs pop at a young age. Because as they get older, their value goes down. The hits come up. Let's look at the 49ers, for instance, and what's going on with them and Raheem Mostert. Mostert wants a new deal, right? He tore things up last year. I mean, especially in the playoffs, he was magnificent. The way he ran all over the Packers, he put on a show. He put on a show and he beat the Packers. I mean, almost single-handedly. So now he wants a deal, right? Now he says, "Look what I did. I deserve more than $3 million a year that I made. $3 million that I'm going to make next season." Now, this is a bit of a different situation with Mostert because Mostert was a journeyman before finding his way to Kyle Shanahan's offense. So this conversation of paying running backs is more about the top tier running back. But I think this situation also has some relevance as well because it just shows the extreme importance in coaching and how much coaching can have on the effect of the running back position. I mean, look at Mosert's stats here, all right? He was a journeyman. He bounced around from team to team, really, went through 5 different teams, came to the 49ers. In 2017, he got 6 rushes for 30 yards then. Then in 2018, he goes 34 rushes for 261 yards, and then in 2019, last year, he popped 137 rushes, 772 yards, and 8 touchdowns. 14 receptions, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. He went off. Now, that makes you say that has a lot to do with Kyle Shanahan, who is by far the best coach when it comes to run blocking scheme and zone blocking scheme and all that. It was just great timing, right place, right time type of thing. And good for him, man. He deserves his money now. If a team can, that's why he wants to trade, because maybe a team will be willing to pay. You know, he's bounced around from team to team. He got on the 49ers, and Shanahan used his talents in his scheme, and it worked out perfect. So if he can go get some money from someone, then congrats to him. But it's pretty easy to look at that situation and say that has a lot to do with Kyle Shanahan. I mean, look at Devontae Freeman, okay? When Kyle Shanahan was with the Falcons, Devontae Freeman was one of the best running backs in the league. I don't even think you can debate that. 2015 with Shanahan, went for 1,056 yards, 11 touchdowns, Pro Bowl running back. 2016 went for 1,079 yards, 11 touchdowns, Pro Bowl running back. Also caught 578 yards for 3 touchdowns in 2015 and 462 yards for 2 touchdowns in 2016. Then Shanahan becomes the head coach of the 49ers. Freeman goes down to 867 yards and 7 touchdowns. He gets injured in 2018, and in 2019 he drops down to 656 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then the Falcons cut him over the offseason. He got his payday, and he showed up 2015-16. He deserved that, but Shanahan is a master at creating opportunities for running backs that usually haven't proven themselves since. Or just new running backs that have come in. Shanahan is just a master at using different backs. He can do it all day long. And that's why they're not going to pay Raheem Mostert. Let's look at the Patriots. I think the Patriots are a really good example of this. The best example of the NFL when it comes to winning, right? The last decade. That's the New England Patriots. There's not a doubt about that. Let's look at their philosophy. They've always had a big running back group. They clearly value the running back position. There's no doubt about that. They always want running backs at that position, but they value a group of them. They don't value one single running back. Look, they even value running backs enough where they'll go draft Sony Michel in the first round, like they did a couple years ago. But they're not going to pay him when his time's up. They use running backs as a committee. So now Saquon Barkley's contract's coming up next. That's the big one, right? What do? Are the Giants actually going to pay him? Well, Gettleman did say when he drafted him that you can't draft someone number 2 overall unless they're a sure thing Hall of Famer. So you would think that they want to keep him. The best thing the Giants can do is pay him early. Pay him as early as possible. Get it out of the way and just pay him. You drafted him number 2 overall. Pay him now. Pay him now before someone else gets a big deal if it happens. I don't know if it will. McCaffrey just got the biggest deal, and I don't know if anyone's beating McCaffrey. It will be interesting to see what the Saints do with Kamara. Be interesting to see what the Vikings do with Cook. It will be interesting to see what happens with the Titans and Derrick Henry. If they come with a deal or if it's a 1-year franchise tag type thing. But clearly the running back position is starting to become hurt. They're not getting the money that they feel like they deserve. And they're just getting passed along for newer running backs. And the only way to fix it is if the Players Association adds something in the next collective bargaining agreement. And that's going to be really tough to pass, but I think that's the only way that they could fix the way that this is trending. Now, I went over time a little bit talking about that because I think it's a fun conversation, but I do quickly want to get into the top 10 running backs for the 2020 season. So, as I said, 50 different NFL executives, coaches, and scouts did a poll on who the top 10 running backs for 2020 season will be. And it's an interesting list. So first, let's look at it. They named Saquon number 1, McCaffrey number 2, Zeke number 3, Kamara number 4, Henry number 5, Dalvin Cook 6, Nick Chubb 7, Joe Mixon 8, Josh Jacobs 9, and Le'Veon Bell 10. This right here proves the point of the amount of good running backs that are out there. I mean, look at some of the names left off. You know, you didn't talk about Mark Ingram, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon. There's so many running backs that are still out there that are so good and put so much production for their team. Now, the conversation is, should Saquon have been over McCaffrey? I personally would have had McCaffrey number 1 because I think McCaffrey does more for his team than Saquon does. And I also think it's fair to look at the durability side of things. I know it's just been 2 years for Saquon, but he has been beaten up. McCaffrey's played every single game since he's been drafted. Now, we have to say this is truly picking hairs, okay? When you're talking about 2 running backs this good, it is picking hairs because they're both so good. And that I would take either of them. But when you look at McCaffrey, you know, goes for double 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving, that just doesn't happen. He can do it all. He's a switchback, and he can do everything for that team. And that's why he got the big dollars, and he deserved the big dollars. But Saquon can do it all too. You know, Saquon isn't as good as a receiver, but he's arguably a better runner. I would say Saquon's a better runner than McCaffrey, but since McCaffrey adds that receiving ability, that's why I would say he's number 1. But again, it is truly splitting hairs. Now, this is where I have the most problem. Zeke is at number 3, and Zeke is a really good running back. I would take Zeke any single day, and he deserved the money he got. But I would have put either Derrick Henry or Nick Chubb at number 3. I would have put either of those 2 above Zeke, and then I would have had Zeke at number 5. I think Nick Chubb, for what he's done at such a young age with that Browns awful O-line, and that's something you can argue about Saquon too. Saquon has had a terrible offensive line, and he's still put up the numbers that he's putting. Last year, the Browns had one of the worst O-lines in the league, and he still was the second leading rusher in the league with 1,494 yards. Nick Chubb is a stud. He would be my 3rd best running back going into the 2020 season because the Browns' offensive line has even become better. So that's going to help him. And then I would have Derrick Henry at number 4. And then I would have Zeke at number 5. That would be my top 5. But all in all, it's a pretty awesome list. And it just goes to show how many really good running backs are out there right now. There's so many good running backs. I mean, Todd Gurley, yeah, he was injured last year. He still had 12 touchdowns. And now he goes to an offense with so many weapons. It's going to be fascinating to watch him. The running back position is so fun to watch, but it's also such a tough topic to talk about because these organizations, they just don't want to pay him. And it's just every year it's gotten more and more of a pushback to paying the big money to a running back. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes as we move forward here, especially in a year where the cap is not going to rise. That is huge when it comes to guys like Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook looking for a deal. This is the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. We are 3 segments into the show, which means we have 1 segment left, and it's the best segment of the show as always. When we come back, we are going to dive in the worst to first debate. That's right, every single year in the NFL, from 2000 all the way to last year, 2019, a team has gone from worst to first every single year except twice. In 2014 and 2019, so last year, were the only years that a team has not gone from worst in their division to first. Every other year it's happened. Who's going to do it this year? We're going to break down every one of those teams in categories. Teams with no chance, teams with that have a possible chance that it could happen if the stars align, and then the teams with the best chance that we really feel like might be able to do it. Stay tuned. You're gonna want to see which teams we picked. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. We'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
We are back. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We're coming around the last turn here, the final segment of the show. I hope you've all enjoyed it so far. It's a beautiful Saturday morning here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we'll be dropping this episode tomorrow, Sunday morning, so you guys can get it wherever you get your podcast. You listen to your podcast then. And please give us some reviews. Let us know what you think. We're always open to new ideas and positive criticism, I'd like to say. So we just talked about the running back position and how that position has really organizations have started to really devalue the position in terms of not paying the big star. There's the exceptions, the Zekes of the world, the Christian McCaffreys of the world. Now we have the questions moving forward. What's going to happen with Dalvin Cook? What's going to happen with Derrick Henry? You've got guys like Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb coming up in a couple years. The running back position is a strong position right now in the NFL. I mean, we just went through the ESPN, did a poll with top 50 executives, coaches, scouts in the league, and the top 10, they left a bunch of running backs out where you said, wow, like this position is a really good and strong position right now in the NFL, and it's exciting. So, it makes you think, how's things going to go forward, though? Are they going to just keep drafting a rookie and then using them up like they have been and then getting rid of them? We're going to find out with that, and that's a very interesting topic going forward. So I hope we kind of laid it out for you last segment, and then we'll debate it more as we go forward here, and as more contracts start to come in, or more organizations start to let go of their running back when their contract is up, and they do what we just said, draft a new one in. But now we want to get to this new segment, and honestly, the best segment of the show. I really enjoy it. I hope you guys do too. I know a lot of my friends and family that have listened to it said that they really love the idea of doing something like that for the fourth segment. So I hope you guys are liking this too. And for this one, we thought about this and we thought this would be a great one. It's the whole worst to first debate in the NFL. The reason why the NFL is such an amazing sport is because there's so much parity, right? I mean, you never know, other than the New England Patriots year in and year out winning the AFC East, that's really the only lock that you could put down. You never knew. I mean, as a fan of the Atlanta Falcons, and, I clearly study and watch the NFC South hard, it feels like every single year they just switch the champion. So that's the coolest part about the NFL. So I started to look into it, and I said, well, how many years has a team been able to go worst to first? And it's a remarkable stat. Since 2000, guys, since 2000, the season 2000, a team has gone worst to first every single year except 2014 and 2019. So last year. Other than that, every single year a team has gone worst to first. That's wild. That's why each team going into the season, you have hope. You know, your fan base truly has hope. And then now with the league adding a 7th playoff team, you might not be able to go worst to first, but as long as you don't start the season out like 0-5, you're going to be in the debate for getting in a wild card position. There's going to be hope all throughout the season, and that's what makes the NFL so amazing. So I thought we would look at the 8 teams that got last place last year in 2019 and see who's most likely to go worst to first this upcoming 2020 season. And if you look at it real quick, I did want to say this. For some of, you know how I said a team has gone worst to first each year since 2000? I wanted to give you guys some of the biggest, wow, that they have. The season 2000, the Patriots went worst to first. So look at the Patriots, all right? In 2000, they were last in their division, last place in their division. 2001, they win the division and they go on to win the Super Bowl. 2002, Panthers, last place in their division. In 2003, they go on to lose in the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots, but they've made it to the Super Bowl. You know, New Orleans, 2008, last place in their division. 2009, go on and win the Super Bowl. 2016, the Eagles, last place in their division. 2017, they go on and win the Super Bowl. So it's not just going worst to first. Some of these teams really actually make a noise in the playoffs, and in some cases, win the Super Bowl or make it to the Super Bowl. So it really is remarkable. So I wanted to look at, okay, let's go through the teams that we have that were last place in 2019. You've got the Washington Redskins. You've got the Detroit Lions. You got the Carolina Panthers. You got the Arizona Cardinals. Those are the last place teams in the NFC, right? Now, AFC. You have the Miami Dolphins. You got the Cincinnati Bengals, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Los Angeles Chargers. So, those are the 8 last place teams. Now, last year, 2019, no one was able to go worst to first. And when you kind of look at this list at first, I think the first thing that comes in your head for many of you is, I don't know if anyone's going to do it again this year. We might, for the first time in I don't know how many years, because I didn't do any research past 2000, we might have back-to-back years of no one going worst to first. It looks tough, but that's the best part about the NFL. It always looks, no chance. No chance. And then it ends up happening. Now, I do think there's a couple of teams that we can go ahead and say, all right, I mean, something crazy will have to happen for this team to have a chance. The first team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, one of my best friends is a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. So you know, I like when they do good for, you know, just for him and stuff like that. But let's just be honest. The Jaguars, I think, might be the worst team in the league this year. I think they're tanking for Trevor Lawrence. I do think they like what they have in Gardner Minshew, but they got rid of Nick Foles, right? They don't have a backup, really. So they're rolling with Gardner Minshew. They're saying they like what they see out of Gardner Minshew. We're rolling with them. Now, that could be a tank job. You know, they could be doing that to know that they have a good chance of getting Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence if they do that. But even if Gardner Minshew becomes a good quarterback in this league, which as a rookie, as a 6th-round draft pick, I mean, he was pretty impressive last year. He had some really good moments where you said, wow, he can sling the ball. But that doesn't mean, you know, he's a franchise quarterback in this league. The jury is still out on that. You know, but the Jaguars, they trade away Calais Campbell They trade away A.J. Boye. Yannick Ngakoue, who's their best player on defense pretty much, he won't sign his franchise tag. He wants a trade. They're offering him a deal, but he doesn't want to sign it because he doesn't want to be there. The Jaguars they're a mess right now. They really are a mess. Their coach is Doug Marrone is hanging on by the skin of his teeth. They wanted to give him one more year because I think that they decided if they're gonna get a new quarterback or if it doesn't work out this year, they're just gonna clean house. Let go of GM, David Caldwell, let go of the head coach, Doug Marrone, and move on. So I think the Jaguars are the number one team where you can say, man, unless some miracle happens, they're not going to be a team that goes worst to first. All right? I think a lot of us can agree on that. The second team, the Washington Redskins. Hopefully by the start of next year, it will not be the Redskins anymore. They'll be able to change that name, which they should, and that's a topic we'll talk about on another day. But this is the time to change it, and we hope they do. If you look at the Redskins, I think that's a team, they went last year 3-13, 1-7 at home, 2-6 on the road. They fired Jay Gruden. In comes Ron Rivera. Now, Dwayne Haskins, we still do not know what's up with Dwayne Haskins. So from that side of the ball, it's going to be tough for them to put up a lot offensively. Now, Ron Rivera is a great coach. He brings in Norv Turner's son, who's a good offensive coordinator. They're going to do good things with Haskins, and I do still think Haskins will make it in this league. But with this type of season where there's not going to be a lot of off-season training, the preseason is going to be shortened, it's going to be hard for Dwayne Haskins to understand Ron Rivera's system right away. And that's going to take some time to learn. So I think they're going to struggle a bit this year. I don't think they'll be as bad as they were last year. I think they'll take some serious big steps on offense and especially on defense. That defensive line, now that they drafted Chase Young, is going to be a problem. That's going to be one of the best defensive lines in the league. And in a couple years, they might go from like what the 49ers did, where no one was talking about that defensive line, and then boom, they become one of the best, if not the best, defensive lines in the league. So they're going to be a team to watch, and they'll be fun to watch with Terry McLaurin on offense, AP being a beast, just saying no to father time and keep running out there, and then watching Dwayne Haskins develop more and more under Ron Rivera's leadership, and then watching the defensive side of the ball, Chase Young. They're going to be a fun team to watch, and I think they win more than 3 games. But they're not going to be in the conversation to win that division. The Eagles are too good. The Cowboys are too good. There's too much talent. I think the Giants take a step up with Daniel Jones. So that's going to be too hard for them. So that's the second team that I would say, it's not going to happen. Now, there's one other team that is in this category of, no way. Unless a miracle happens, just not going to happen, okay? That last team is the Cincinnati Bengals, because we're doing this in tiers, right? We're looking at this in tiers. We're going to do the 3 tiers. Unless there's a miracle, it's just not going to happen. Then we're going to do okay, you know what? The stars might align, and this actually could happen. It really, really could. And then we're going to do okay, there's a real possibility. This is the most likely for a team that's going to do it if they go worst to first this year. So we've given you no chance for the Jaguars, no chance for the Redskins, and then now no chance for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals will be a much better team this year. There's no doubt about that. I like what the Bengals have done. I think Joe Burrow is going to be a good quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be a great quarterback. I'm hesitant in loving quarterbacks that have one really good college season. And even though that was a really, really good college season, I'm still a little bit hesitant to just jump up and say he's going to be their guy. I think he will be, and I think he'll be good, but there's still a lot of questions there. Zach Taylor, he's a young coach. He still has to learn, and then again, this offseason, it's a different offseason. How much time has Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow had together? How much time has Joe Burrow and A.J. Green had together? How much time has Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon and the offensive line had together? Last year, the Bengals offense was worse in pass blocking, worse in run blocking, worse in receiving, rushing. I mean, they just were not a good team last year. So they will take steps up, but look at the division they're in. Baltimore Ravens, they're going to be a phenomenal team. Pittsburgh, if Big Ben stays healthy, they're going to be a very good team. That defense is going to be one of the best defenses in the league. And I think the Browns will be a good team too. They'll be much better than they were last year. I don't know if they'll be playoff good, but they'll be a good team. So when you put in all of that together, rookie in Joe Burrow, not getting enough time with his offense before the season starts, the defense still has a lot of holes, offensive line still has a lot of holes, and the division is just really, really good. You can add the Bengals to the list of just not going to happen this year. No chance unless there's a miracle. All right? So that tier is done. Let's put that tier out. Now, next tier is the tier where, okay, wait, if the stars align, this actually could happen. The worst chance, so the lowest team in that tier is the Carolina Panthers. Now, I like Matt Rule. I think he's a straight football coach. What he did with Temple and then really what he did with Baylor after the things that has happened to that organization, and he comes in and goes 0-11 and then flips them right around the next year and takes them almost to the college football playoff, but he does take them to the Big 12 title game. Like, that is just remarkable. So Matt Rule is going to be a really good football coach in the NFL. I don't doubt that at all, but it's going to take time. I love the Teddy Bridgewater signing. I'm higher on Teddy than a lot of people are, but it's going to take time for that as well. They have Christian McCaffrey. DJ Moore will take a step up. Their offense will be pretty good. Their defense is going to be a huge issue. There's a reason why they became the first team to use every single draft pick in the draft this past April on defense. Luke Kuechly retired. James Bradbury goes and signs with the Giants. Their defense is going to be an issue. It's going to take time, and they're another team in the boat of, because of the virus, they're just not going to get a lot of repertoire. They're not going to get a lot of practice together, and there's going to be a lag in that when the season starts. So that's the first team in that, well, if everything does come together, it's a possibility, but with that division too, the Bucs are going to be really good. The Saints are going to be good as always, and I think the Falcons are going to take a huge leap forward as well. So it's going to be really, really hard. All the stars will have to align, but I guess there's a possibility. Now, the next team is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers are in this category for really one reason and one reason alone, and that's their division. Their division with Kansas City, who's going to win that division, unless Mahomes got hurt, which we hope that doesn't happen, they don't have a shot. And that's why they're in the division. Now, the reason why they're in this, well, if the stars align, it could happen tier, is because it's football. Patrick Mahomes could get hurt, and they have a really good roster. Derwin James is coming back on defense. They've got Joey Bosa. They've got Melvin Ingram. They re-signed Austin Eckler. I like Tyrod Taylor. But is it really an upgrade from Phillip Rivers? Mobility-wise, yes. Passing-wise, If this team went out and signed Cam Newton, I would have put them in the number one chance of going worst to first. I don't know if they could get it done with Tyrod there. He's a respectable quarterback in this league. There's a reason why he's been here so long. He's a great guy. Maybe they'll be fighting for a wild card spot because of the talent of that team. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry. I mean, this is a talented team. I just don't know if the quarterback will be able to get them over the hump. And like I said, unless for some reason something happens to Mahomes, no one is winning that division. Also, Drew Lock is getting much better. The Broncos will take a step up. And I think the Raiders will take a big step up as well, too. All right. Then we have the Miami Dolphins. All right. The reason why they're in this tier is their division's a little bit weaker. The Bills, I think, will be better. We don't know about the Patriots and Cam Newton, and we have to see how things go with Sam Darnold and the Jets. The Dolphins have gotten a lot better. I love their head coach in Brian Flores. I think he was the head coach of the year last year for what he did with that team. But the question is it Tua or is it Ryan Fitzpatrick? If it's Tua, will he be ready? Will he be able to stay healthy? They're also in the boat of no offseason. How's that going to affect? So it's going to be really tough for them, but the reason why I put them in this division is because they have a really good head coach and their division is not that strong. So there is a possibility if Tua comes out and just sparks, which we've seen it happen with RG3 and other QBs like that their rookie year. So it's a possibility. All right? So those are the teams all right, there's a possibility. It could happen if all the stars align. Now, the two teams this actually could happen are first the Arizona Cardinals. I love what they've done adding DeAndre Hopkins, drafting Isaiah Simmons on defense. Kyler Murray, another year in Cliff Kingsbury offense is going to get better. The offensive line will be better. Kenyon Drake with the running back position will be better. They are going to be a very good team. The problem is they have a really hard division as well. I don't know if they can surpass San Francisco and Seattle. That's the only issue. I think they'll fight for a playoff spot and as a wild card. I just don't know if they can surpass the 49ers and the Seahawks. They're just a little bit ahead of them right now, but this is a team to watch. They're going to be so fun and dynamic, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and it could happen because of that offensive power. It definitely could happen. And then the number one team is the Detroit Lions. The Lions, I know this sounds crazy, but the Lions have a chance because they have a superstar quarterback in Matt Stafford. I know Stafford's got a lot of crap, but he is a franchise quarterback star in this league. And when you have Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones on your team, and then you go out and draft DeAndre Swift from Georgia, get him in the second round, you become a much better team. And because of that, they have a shot. All right. I mean, before Stafford got hurt last year, they were 3-4-1, and those 4 losses, there were 1-score losses to the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Packers. 1-score losses. You know, the ball bounces one way, someone catches the ball, a field goal is made, that completely changes, and they have a winning record. Stafford's going to be healthy. He had all offseason to get healthy. It's difficult to see the Packers and the Vikings taking a full step back, though. So I would lean towards taking a bet of no one goes worst to first. But if there's a chance, if the best chance goes to the Detroit Lions because of Matt Stafford and the offensive pieces they'll have on the ball. I don't know if I trust Matt Patricia. That's out for the jury to tell, but that's something we'll find out. So that was the worst to first segment. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think it's the best thing about the NFL. It's a mystery. It's always up in the air. You never know, and it gives fan bases hope. So thank you, everyone, for listening. This was the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you all to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really, really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, we would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great night, and we'll be back next week with another podcast. Have a good one. Bye.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.